As for wages growth yesterday, pretty solid, Evan. Can that continue?
It can, and that's partly to the first question as well around inflation, is that wages are actually showing that that's part of the whole story. So we actually grew by 0.6% in the last quarter of 2020, which is pretty impressive considering that, we still weren't back on our full feet when we still aren't. We know that employment growth has been very good, but most of it's in part-time rather than full-time. To actually see those kind of wage growth numbers during a recession and during a pandemic, I think is reasonable. And considering the January and February employment data numbers that we've been seeing, you would expect it. It's a question of what happens from 31st of March when JobKeeper goes out. There is likely to be a drop-off in wages in the interim as the actual unemployment rate probably levels out to what it should be rather than being sort of hidden by JobKeeper. So wages are there, and that's probably part of inflation. I will say this, though, it's no way near as what it was 2 years ago when wages were growing about 1% per year.
Okay, Evan, we've got a press conference in a couple of hours' time, just over 2 hours' time, featuring Qantas today. It's going to be delivering its financial report card. What do you think is going to be in that? What sort of news is that going to reveal?
Yeah, I think the report card could almost be put to one side because clearly it's going to be pretty poor. I mean, that's an understatement in terms of what it is. It's a question of whether or not Qantas has started to get back towards about 50 to 60% of pre-COVID levels. It might. What's more important coming from Alan Joyce is the future outlook around it. Qantas is like almost a microcosm for how the economy is going. Do we have the confidence to actually move? Do we actually have the confidence to travel? Is domestic travel, which makes up about 65% normally of their overall earnings, returning? And we know it's not. And he will probably be very strong on not just the vaccine, but also the measures that particularly the states are taking around restriction of travel. And I think that will be more interesting in terms of what he says and whether or not, if we continue down the current path that we've seen basically through January and February, where we have seen border closures again from outbreaks in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and also in Perth, and what that means for Qantas, or does he say that, if we can get a national consensus about allowing the state borders at least to remain open, what that could actually mean for Qantas, and therefore also travel and transport and hospitality and tourism as well. So I think he will be quite interesting on that respect, and that's what I'll be watching from him, not really the numbers because they will be terrible.